What is up, everybody? It is Tuesday, January the 7th. This is kind of like the second real day of the year. My opinion, at least. I mean, I still had kids on vacation and all that stuff going on, so feels like the second real day of the year. Man, last night, the deep dive was on point. I mean, I hope you guys loaded up Sabonis. I hope you guys loaded up Jokic. We covered both those guys extensively. We covered kind of the funnel with the Indiana Pacers, with TJ McConnell, with TJ Warren, and with Domantas Sabonis. Warren and Sabonis went absolutely nuts. Right before we ended the podcast, Drew Holiday was ruled out. I really liked Brandon Ingram and Etuan Moore in that spot. Etuan Moore came through with 28.9 fantasy points, returned 7.2x on value. So real quick, I'm just going to touch on this real quick. During the course of the day, with NBA, it's the most difficult sport for DFS, in my opinion. You know, football is hard. DFS football is hard because of the variance with DFS. It's hard. NBA is difficult because you just can't miss on anyone. I mean, your 9 spots, you can't get a 2x return in cash. You're not going to. So, you know, NBA is tough. It's all about returning value with NBA. The NFL, you can miss. I mean, I took down 25 grand one night in an NBA or NFL contest and had a 3 from my wide receiver number 3. But, I mean, I hit on, I believe in that lineup, I hit on Pittsburgh, Dallas players. I've had good luck with Pittsburgh and Dallas players now that I think about it. I mean, I won a tournament last year with Pittsburgh and Dallas players. But anyway, you can miss with one guy if you nail a couple of other guys that go nuts that are low owned. You can't do that in NBA. I mean, you've got to get return on all of your players, and sometimes sorting through. With NBA, I think what makes it the most difficult is the people that are able to sort through the crap the best are the ones that end up winning the tournaments and taking the stuff down. And I'm not talking about max entering, okay? I'm talking about skilled contests, 3-man leagues, head-to-head, single entry, 3 max entry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are now I'm going to refer to those solely as the skilled contest, because right now anybody can put 150 lineups in and just blindly do it and have a chance to win that night because optimizers are getting good. But the skilled contest, okay, you can't miss. You can't miss on a player in cash. And the guys who are going to sort through the shit day in and day out are the guys that are going to take it down. Whoever does that the best. And I failed miserably yesterday at sorting through the shit. Where I was when I did the deep dive and where I ended up sorting through the shit completely messed me up. I posted a lineup that I had sent to one of my buddies earlier in the day when I finished the deep dive with my quote-unquote rough draft lineup. I moved from my desk, my office, my desktop computer, to my couch prior to lock, like an hour before lock. I returned to my computer to do some stuff for the site at like 9:30 last night, and the lineup that I screenshotted and sent out to my buddy with my quote-unquote rough draft was still on my screen. Here it goes. Doncic, Dejounte Murray, Zach LaVine, Marcus Smart, Etuan Moore, Trevor Ariza, which I was all over on the deep dive. Sabonis, another guy which I said on the deep dive was my favorite player of the slate. Omari Spellman, if you listened yesterday, which I said it's very difficult to nail down the players for the role players for the Warriors, even when they're 100% healthy. And my center was Jokic. Covered Jokic extensively yesterday. What I said about Jokic was Jamal Murray has taken over more usage, and that's why you're not getting the monster games out of Jokic. This is a crush spot for him in this spot, a center against the Hawks. The return on value, 8.3x for Jokic, 6.9x for Spellman, 5.4 for Sabonis. He got hurt, minor injury, went to the locker room, missed 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. Still had 49.9 fantasy points. Ariza returned 9.4x, and I told you that was a Trevor Ariza game against a young team that's a bunch of role players that are starting now that, quite frankly, turn the ball over and get in foul trouble. It's an Ariza game. He returned 9.4x, 35.7 fantasy points at 3.8K. Etwan Moore goes 7.2x, Smart 6.9x, Levine 6.3x, Murray 5.7x, Doncic 5.7x. Long story short, this lineup would have returned 397.2, would have taken everything down. And I didn't play it because I didn't sort through the shit very good yesterday. So where you're at, and here's the lesson to be learned with NBA and why it is so tough, okay? The NFL gives you this hour and a half buffer zone. All active inactives must be declared an hour and a half prior to the game kicking off. That's a lot of time to kind of decipher the shit. Plus, we've got one game, right? The team's playing one game that week. We've got injury reports on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we've kind of got an idea of who's going to be active and who's going to be not active. And a true game time decision in the NFL, we know an hour and a half before kickoff if the guy's active or inactive because the roster is 53 and on game day it's 49. So they're not going to hold a guy to a game time decision and then hold him out and take up a roster spot that day. They'll declare him inactive. The NBA is way different. Way, way different. We don't know what the hell is going to happen. I mean, I pretty much spelled it out for you when I said Markkanen was going to play. He went from being doubtful to out to doubtful, then upgraded to questionable. And I said, you can't play Markkanen or Young because you don't know. You can't say for sure that Markkanen's going to be out. And he played. And I hinged Doncic on that play. I said Doncic is going to be probably lower owned because the game on the surface looks like it'll blow out. All these people are game time decisions for the Bulls. And it really played out the exact way that I thought it would. So that's the theme for NBA. You have to sort through the shit, and what you think is a good play at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when all the injury news breaks, you really have to compare if a guy is in a good spot now because of an injury. Is he in a better spot than somebody you liked at 1 o'clock? And here's how you determine that. Is the opportunity for the injury situation and the player who's going to benefit from it, is the opportunity for him to hit value better or worse than the person you originally liked at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? And that has to be a disciplined process across the board. Because you can't miss with NBA. NFL you can. MLB you can miss. I've won a lot of tournaments in MLB and gotten nothing. I mean, I've finished I want to say last year I had I won't call it terrible. I'm grateful for it because I made a lot of money doing it. But I probably got second and third 10 times last year in tournaments, and I had a 0 from somebody. Like, the dude gets a walk or a base hit, a sack fly, and I win. So, NBA, you take a 0 from somebody, you are not cashing. You take a 2x from somebody, you are not cashing. And that's why it's so much more difficult. This comes down to, like I said, minutes equal opportunity. Opportunity equals production. Production equals fantasy points. Can this person return value with their opportunity? And that's all we're trying to do is sort through the shit and find the people who have the best probability to return the value that we need. What is the value? At least 5.5x. And if everybody in your lineup returns you 5.5x, you'll have a chance to cash. That's no upside, right? That's just if across the board, everybody got a 5.5x. You have a chance to cash. And that's the way you've got to look at it. Can I get 5 to 6x out of this person, and what's the probability of them doing it? And if you apply that, you'll stay off some people too. I mean, you'll stay off some people in some situations. You look at the over-under and you say, okay, the over-under in this game is 200 or 210. You know, this player's 12,000. They need to give me 72 fantasy points. You know, what's the likelihood of that happening? I'm going to fade this spot because I just don't think in this slow-paced, low over-under that the probability is high for this person to get me a 6x or 72 fantasy points. I'm going to stay away from it. So let's look at tonight. What do we have on the slate tonight? Nice little small slate. There's a late game, which I love. The late game is an hour and a half after kind of the last game of the slate, if you will. There's a gap of an hour and a half between the Knicks and the Lakers and the Kings at Phoenix. So let's start this thing off with the over-unders, who is where. Detroit's at Cleveland. And every time I see Detroit at Cleveland, I want to play Kevin Love. Just because in the past, Kevin Love has had some really nice games against Detroit. He just has. And that's, you know, just based off me watching and playing and being involved in this for the last 5 years. Just know Kevin Love's played decently against Detroit. But that's just a gut feeling. So the over-under in this way, Detroit at Cleveland, the over-under here, not big, 218. Detroit minus 3.5. And I'm gonna continue to point this guy out because one, while his price has increased a little bit, but he's playing shooting guard, so you look at FanDuel and he's listed as a point guard. So there's one difference between the two sites right there. Colin Sexton at 5.9. He's coming off a 30-point outing against Oklahoma City on the 4th. He only had 19 against Minnesota on the 5th in the second half of back-to-back. But the guy's playing 35 minutes. So a guy at 6,000 basically, 5.9 on FanDuel, he's playing 35 minutes. You need 30 fantasy points to get you 5x. You need 36 fantasy points to get you 6x out of him. Is there a high probability that Colin Sexton can return you a 5.5 to 6x return on your investment today? Absolutely. Multiple 35-point fantasy outings this year. Multiple. He just had 39 against Oklahoma City on 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. He's playing the off guard. Nobody's going to play Colin Sexton at point guard tonight as their point guard number 2. So it's a way to be different. You look at Derrick Rose, 6,100. Derrick Rose in a really good spot against Cleveland, coming off a nice outing as well. 28 points against the Lakers, 43.1 fantasy points. He had 41 fantasy points against the Spurs on December 28th. He's going to play 26 to 28 minutes. He's 6.1. I like both these guys, to be honest with you. I like both of them. The center spot in this game, I mean, what's not to like about Drummond here? Here's the problem with Drummond, okay? You could say problem or you could say opportunity. All kinds of rumors around Drummond being traded. His price tag is 10.3. He's going to play against Tristan Thompson, who's a game-time decision. People are going to start, and in Discord the other day, I put 2 words, Dion Waiters. I don't know how many of you remember this or how many of you have been playing Daily Fantasy long enough to remember when Dion Waiters was absolutely chalk because of an injury situation. And then 7 minutes after lock, while he was 60% owned in tournaments, he was ruled out and traded. Talk about just burning money. Like I said, you can't miss an NBA, and there's a guy who has a 0, who's 60% owned. In 50-50s, it was fine because 60% of the field owned him. But in tournaments where 22% of the field gets paid, 40% of the field did not own him, and they had a huge leg up on everybody else who owned him. So Thompson is a game-time decision here. He's got an illness. We'll see what happens. But if Zizic is going to start against Drummond, Drummond's in a smash spot, and he's in a spot where he could possibly be low owned because people are going to start to not play Drummond because they're worried about getting burned. So if you're in a 3-entry max tournament, you've got 3 entries. Everybody's got 3 entries. You can get a huge leverage position by just using one of those lineups with Drummond in it. 10.3 is very fair for Drummond, especially in this spot against Cleveland. And from the injury standpoint in this game, Blake Griffin has been ruled out. Tristan Thompson's a game-time decision with an illness. Markieff Morris, Luke Kennard, and Larry Nance all out of this one. So there's an opportunity here for a few guys. Bruce Brown at 4.8, Christian Wood at 4.7. The price is climbing a little bit on Wood, getting you a 6x. Bruce Brown, a decent play here in this spot. And then, you know, there's a couple of guys here. And here's the chalk play of the day, in my opinion, but the price has really come up. Soku Dubambier has played 27, 38, and 34 minutes in the last 3 games. 38 is the ceiling game against Golden State in 38 minutes, 16 and 10. It's a really good value play. So, you know, with that kind of value play on the board, with this many guys out for Detroit, with the rumors around Drummond, use him in one of your entries. Use him in one. There's a ton of usage to go around. We'll know right at lock or right 10 minutes before lock. I don't think they'll trade. I mean, I don't know if this is a Harrison Barnes situation where it's not the trade deadline. They're not going to trade Drummond in the middle of the second quarter. So that's Cleveland at Detroit. Or Detroit at Cleveland, I'm sorry. Portland is at Toronto. Siakam is still out. Van Vliet has been ruled out. McCollum is a game-time decision. Gasol is still out. Norman Powell is a game-time decision. Scala Bissere is out. Lillard's 8.9. And I'm going to continue to say this. This is not the Toronto Raptors of last year. Kawhi Leonard's not on this team. They're not a team that you have to worry about it being a low-scoring game. And the over-under is 220. Toronto's favored by 3. Western Conference team against the Eastern Conference team. If McCollum is out, the guy that I actually think benefits the most from this is Anthony Simmons at 3.9. Lillard will obviously dominate the ball, but Anthony Simmons, there's an opportunity for him to get increased minutes here. They're already missing a couple of other players, and I think Anthony Simmons is the guy that could benefit the most. If you look at Anthony Simmons, he can get you big minutes. I mean, his minutes kind of look like they're all over the place, but they're pretty steady at probably averaging close to 26 minutes over his last 6 games. The production kind of all over the place, 24, 13, 13, 26, 15. But at 3.9, if McCollum is going to be out, the opportunity for him to have a 6, 7, 8x game tonight is huge as a value point guard spot. The rest of this, I mean, look, with no Van Vliet, you can look at guys like Patrick McCaw at 3.7. You can definitely look at, Terrence Davis is a guy I'm not going to play. He'll probably go off tonight because I'm saying that, but I mean, Terrence Davis is just not a guy I'm going to play. His biggest fantasy production output is 28.7 fantasy points. That's great at 3.6. It's an 8+ return, but those are few and far between. And the minutes are sporadic. They're way too sporadic. I would much rather play Simmons at a point guard number 2 than Davis at a shooting guard number 2. I'd like to get a little more exposure to maybe Norman Powell. He's a game time decision as well. Patrick McCaw. If Powell is out, I like McCaw. Van Vliet is out already. That makes me like Kyle Lowry. Oklahoma City at Brooklyn. Oklahoma City on a back-to-back. The streamlined play is Steven Adams against Brooklyn, a center against Brooklyn. Vucevic was over 45% owned in almost everything yesterday because it's a center against Brooklyn. So I look for Steven Adams at 6.5 to be somewhat popular today. Another center against Brooklyn. They are on a back-to-back. It's a grind-down game. 216 is the lowest over-under on the slate. Oklahoma City minus 2.5. No Kyrie Irving still. Dinwiddie's price is down a little bit. Galigius Alexander at 6.5. Schroeder at 6,000. LeVert is playing at 4.8. And here's the thing with LeVert. He only played 15 minutes in his first game back, and then he was held out yesterday. So, if we get some news that says anything about, LeVert in minutes, which I haven't seen anything, if he's going to play 25 minutes at that price tag, I think he can smash that price tag. I think he can get you 25 pretty easy if he's going to play 20 minutes plus. But until we know the minutes are there, it's a tough play. Gallinari is out, and whenever Gallinari is out, streamline Gilgeous-Alexander at 6.5. You can even throw Schroeder behind that, so I like those two guys. It's probably the only two guys on the Oklahoma City side outside of Adams that I like. The Brooklyn side I'm not big on. Minnesota is at Memphis. Boy, Minnesota, what a mess. An absolute just dumpster fire. Towns is still questionable to play. Still dealing with this knee injury. He's missed, I think, 11 straight games going back to the 18th of December. It'll be interesting to see if he's going to play. Problem is, 8 p.m. Eastern start, an hour after lock. Minnesota not the best with letting us know on injuries. Gorgui Dieng's price is all the way up to $6,000. Valanciunas, while he's not playing a ton of minutes, is a very formidable opponent for any center. Valanciunas' output this season has been ridiculous in the limited amount of minutes that he's played. At 6.7, I love him as a pivot off Steven Adams. In 26 minutes this year, he's gotten you 50 fantasy points more than once. He just played 26 minutes against Phoenix for 52.6 fantasy points. He hovers like 30 as his floor. And, I mean, against Gorgui Dieng, I think it's a pretty good matchup. If Towns plays, we'll have to see. I can't see Towns getting a full complement of minutes when he returns anyway. It's the knee injury. And the amount of games he's missed, he's not in game shape. Especially with the knee injury. It's not like he's been in the pool doing cardio. Sacramento at Phoenix. I think this is the most popular spot of the night, to be honest with you. The over-under in this one is 226. Phoenix is minus 6.5. They're coming off a back-to-back. That is Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox laid an egg last night. Turned the ball over quite a bit. 21 points. 4 rebounds, 7 assists, a block, and a steal. 6 turnovers. He still had 36 fantasy points, but kind of underwhelming, especially in that spot. The guy that I like here is DeAndre Ayton. I just don't like the price of 8.1. He needs to get you 50 tonight. If he was at 7,000, I'd be all over it because I think 40 is very doable. But he needs to get you 50 to return you value. So I'm not big on him, but there's spots in this game I like. Just to kind of, Rashawn Holmes is a game time decision. Marvin Bagley, I believe, was just ruled out. Let me check. I'll check on that. But a guy I mentioned yesterday. Let's just put it to you like that. 2 guys. Ariza first. Okay? Ariza first. Last night, Harry Giles played 15 minutes and got you 19.2 fantasy points at 3.5. 4 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. 4 turnovers. The 4 turnovers, he kills 6x without those. And if Bagley is out and Rashawn Holmes is out, Dwayne Dedmon, we know, is not playing because he's requested a trade and been fined and not happy and who knows what. I look for him to remain inactive. So that would put the bigs available for Sacramento as Harry Giles, Bjelica, and Caleb Swanigan. Swanigan was recalled from the G League. He played 6 minutes last night. But those would be the bigs. And we know Swanigan from his days in Portland. Those would be their bigs. Harry Giles would be – look, we may not know, but if we get word before lock that Bagley and Rashawn Holmes are not playing today, forget these other guys as value power forwards. Lock Harry Giles in. Harry Giles can crush 6X if he gets 25 minutes. Very active, athletic big. Runs the floor, blocks shots, very active big. The Phoenix side of things, look, Devin Booker, 8,800. Don't love it. Oubre's at 7,600. Don't love it. I just don't really like the prices of these Phoenix players. But, can Booker get you 50 tonight? Yeah, he could in this spot. Absolutely could. He's the best play in my opinion. Ayton would be a very intriguing play to me if Rashawn Holmes and Marvin Bagley don't play, because I just think that that's a huge mismatch to put Giles against Ayton. And I think that with only 6 fouls to give, I think that Giles would play a little bit conservative to try to not get in foul trouble. So Ayton could dominate that and maybe return you the 50 that you need. It's kind of how I look at that situation with Sacramento and Phoenix. The last game of the night. The Knicks are at the Lakers. 221.5. The Lakers are minus 13. And you want to play every Laker here. You want to play the two big guys. They're both game time decisions. Anthony Davis expects to play. Still dealing with the shoulder soreness. LeBron James, a game time decision. LeBron James, he's under the weather. He's got a little bit of a cold, I guess. But we're hopeful, according to Frank Vogel, that LeBron will play tonight. They'll both play. LeBron James, one thing that I'll say about LeBron James, I'm a huge Laker fan. I'm not the biggest LeBron James fan. But at least he gets it. It's not a guy who's going to rest for load management. If he's not going to play, it's because he really can't play. I'll give him that. Caruso is maybe the most interesting play here. And it seems to me as we go through this, there's a lot of value at point guard tonight. Potential value. Caruso just played 24 minutes against Detroit. And Caruso's played 20 minutes all year long. He had a little bit of a calf injury, but he returned from it. 13 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists in 24 minutes. And it's a guy that Vogel likes. Book it for 20 minutes. Here's the intriguing part about it. Lakers are favored by 13. If the game should blow out, Caruso will get 4 or 5 extra minutes in the fourth quarter. And really the ability to just smash that 3.86x is what you need. The 21, 22 fantasy points that you need. He's intriguing. Outside of that, Caruso, I'm not really interested in any of the Knicks. Julius Randle in the narrative going back to L.A. So what? He played New Orleans last year. Is it a big deal? He's going back to LA. I don't know. 7.1 at the power forward spot. Seems like power forward and point guard, there's a lot of value tonight. Don't think you need to spend 7-on-1 for Randall going against Davis. Kuzma at 4.7. Kuzma's been picking it up lately. Kuzma's an intriguing play, but is he? When you start looking at how some of this could unfold, what's more likely than not? The kid in Detroit getting you a 6x return, or Kuzma in this spot? The minutes are started to be there for Kuzma. From Christmas Day until New Year's Day, he played 27, 29, 26, 27. Then he starts the new year off by only playing 18 and 20. It's not confidence inspiring for that spot. So, that's kind of how this thing shakes out. Where am I ranking people right now for tonight? The point guard position. Look, I like Colin Sexton. I like Derrick Rose. And I like Kyle Lowry quite a bit. Because there is no Van Vliet. We'll have to see what happens with Norman Powell. And Chris Paul at 6.8 against Brooklyn, I mean, the only problem with that is Oklahoma City just grinds it down. But I would rank them out as right now Lowry 1, De'Aaron Fox 2, Rose 3, Sexton 4, Lillard 5. And number 6 is Anthony Simmons. At the moment, while we await CJ McCollum news. And I'm just going to check and see if we've got anything that has come in. So Bagley's doubtful and Holmes are doubtful. That's the latest news that I've just got. Bogdanovich ruled out. I'm telling you right now, there's 2 guys that are really good value that are really late on that Sacramento team. Trevor Ariza. Monster night last night. I don't want to feel like we're chasing it. But Devin Booker can sure turn the ball over. Ricky Rubio can sure turn the ball over. And Giles is, if he's going to get a huge boost in minutes, he's the premier value play on the slate, in my opinion. So Simmons will remain there until I know, at my 6, until I really know what we're going to get from McCollum. Right now, like I said, he's a game-time decision with an illness. Never fun to be sick on the road. Never fun. Shooting guard spot. Without Gallinari, I really like Gilgeous-Alexander. I think it's a really good spot for Gilgeous-Alexander. They're playing against Brooklyn. He's a scorer. He can get you baskets. I think Schroeder is right behind him. I like Buddy Hield. I like Bruce Brown. I like Devin Booker. Patrick McCaw would be 6, kind of in that spot. And Karis LeVert will keep kind of on the border here in hopes we find some news before lock that says he's going to be limited to or he's going to get at least this many minutes. The small forward position, LeBron James is really like the number 1 pay-up spot on the slate for me. And the way I handle the 2 Lakers and playing them, if it's an up-tempo type game where there's going to be a lot of scoring, I like LeBron because of the fact that he can fill up the stat sheet in all categories. He'll dish it. He can score. He can get you rebounds. He'll get you steals. He plays defense. And that's kind of what tonight is with that over-under. The spread's 13.5. I don't mind. I think there's enough value to play them both together, Davis and LeBron, as the 2 pay-up spots today. But, I mean, when we look at this overall slate and where who you could pay up for, AD is way above everybody else. And Towns is a game-time decision. So it really puts Lillard and Whiteside at 8.9. There's a huge gap between Drummond, LeBron, and Davis. And I think you can get 2, maybe 3 of those guys tonight in a lineup because of the value that's starting to develop for the slate. So LeBron will be 1. I think Anunoby is very intriguing. Number 2, Harrison Barnes. Again, I would look at him. Ariza. Ariza's right there for me today, especially knowing now that Bagley's doubtful and so is Rashawn Holmes. Holmes is dealing with a strained right shoulder, and Bagley continues to cover from a sprained left foot. So if these guys don't play, I mean, Harry Giles and Trevor Ariza are going to get some run tonight. The power forward spot, right now, number 1 for me is Harry Giles. There's no bigs left besides Bjelica. And people are going to flock to Bjelica like flies to shit. Because he's an obvious play. He's 4.9. People know the name Bjelica. They don't know the name Harry Giles. So people will flock to Bjelica. Harry Giles is 1 for me. Ibaka, because Ibaka plays center, and he's listed as power forward on FanDuel. He plays center, and centers have absolutely smashed Portland. He's number 2. And I'm having a really hard time kind of beyond that because I need to kind of figure out a couple other things. But I think Sokoto Diambie is a really good play as well at 4.6. I don't even have a problem right now with playing Duambie, and Giles together and just kind of paying down at that spot. But I think the most popular thing to do, because there's not a lot of pay up spots tonight and there's a lot of value on the board, will be to put LeBron and AD in the same lineup. I just think that's going to be pretty popular. So I think you can be different playing Duambie and Giles together. Giles is definitely one. Bjelica will get run today, but I'm not saying Bjelica is not a good play, but 4.7 to 3.5, I think that you can get return on investment a little easier out of Giles than you can out of Bjelica. So, I mean, Giles is one for me. Number one. The center spot. I think the number one center on the board is Ibaka, but he's listed as a power forward on FanDuel. You can play him at center, obviously, on DK. Steven Adams should be fairly chalky. Drummond rates out extremely well, but like I said, I think people will fade Drummond for the simple fact he could be traded. And don't fade Drummond just because he could be traded. Fade Drummond if he's playing on the West Coast and locks at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, and he's playing at 10:30 Eastern. Fade him if you think he's going to be traded, because you can't late swap him. I just don't think they're going to trade Andre Drummond like what happened with Harrison Barnes in the middle of the second quarter. So we'll know. That's my point. We should know. Let everybody else be ridiculous. If it happens and he gets traded in the middle of the second quarter in a 7 Eastern game, that's just bad luck, okay? The play was correct. The proper way to leverage this is let everybody else fade him because of the narrative that he could be traded. They have no other reason. People are going to avoid Drummond because he might be traded. Somebody could get hit by a car walking out of their house. That might happen. Doesn't mean it's going to. The proper way to do it, Drummond's playing at lock tonight. First games of the slate are Detroit and Cleveland, Portland and Toronto. We will know if he's going to be in the lineup tonight. I just don't see, the NBA has this 12 minutes where games, 7-12 is when it tips off or whatever. He could be traded in that time span, but I don't think you would see Drummond take the floor for the pregame warm-up and starting lineups in that 12-minute time span if he was going to be traded. So the proper way to do it is if he's playing in a game that is an hour after lock plus, fade him in that spot because you're not comfortable. Tonight, I think you can play him. I think you can play Drummond tonight. There's nothing that says he has to be traded today. We're not up against the deadline quite yet. Hassan Whiteside, look, Ibaka is playing center for Toronto. So Hassan Whiteside definitely in play here. He's played extremely well. DeAndre Jordan, I like him quite a bit as well. And that's kind of where it's at. I mean, I've mentioned DeAndre Ayton. I do like him. We'll have to wait and see what happens with Tristan Thompson. But there's a lot of value on the board. And you're going to have to sift through the shit today and do it correctly. And when you do that, who has the opportunity to give you 6x and who has the higher probability of doing it? And I'm going to tell you right now, the first spot that you're going to have to figure that out with Bagley doubtful and Holmes doubtful is with Duambie and Harry Giles. And I'm going to bet on Harry Giles. I'm in Northern California. I've seen this dude play a lot over the last year and a half. That's just my 2 cents in my opinion on what I think is going to happen. I'm not saying Duambie is a bad play. I'm not saying any of that. The guy's getting a ton of minutes and he's got upside. But Harry Giles, man, it's a really good play. There's not a lot of bigs left. I'll be back tomorrow for the Wednesday edition of Deep Dive. If you got questions on this or anything else, feel free to hit me up in Discord. Until tomorrow, be cool, keep it cashing. Peace out.